All right.
Steli's live.
Steli is indeed
wow.
live.
I'm not Steli.
No, this is Phil Frio, at Phil Frio.
How's it going?
So this is the last day of Business of Software conference.
No commenting? Oh, come on.
Oh, I didn't do anything to not allow people to comment.
Steli doesn't let us comment.
How do I change that?
I don't know, limited by broadcaster.
All right, I'm sorry, guys. Just tweet at us. I'm new to this Periscope thing. I obviously don't know what I'm doing. So we're at the hotel room here. I'm a little sweaty. I just came from a run because Phil has to run and catch his flight back to San Francisco. I have to catch a flight later today to Berlin.
How do I share this thing?
I don't know. I think you do have to like tap at the bottom of it or something.
Oh, here we go. Okay, I got it.
All right, so you tap to the bottom. You see like a little like where in Boston we are, and then there's like a share button. Please do that. Oh, and I see the hi chat. Chat is enabled.
Nice.
Please chat something so we know that it actually worked. All right, so I'll give you the quick tour that we're actually truly in Boston. I'll give you the kind of beautiful view out there. I don't know how well you can see all this, but it's a beautiful weather, beautiful day in Boston with the hotel room, last day of Business of Software conference. We'll share some of our favorite kind of takeaways from it. Let's see if we can find a way to stabilize the cam here so I don't have to hold it the entire time. All right, something like this, and then we'll all right, we'll do that. All right, so Phil, let's start with you. Let's take some of our favorite talks and kind of summarize what we enjoyed about them, what we liked about them. The cool thing is, if you go to businessofsoftware.com or Business of Software Conference and you Google it, they will publish all the videos of all the talks. And I highly advise you guys to watch them. There were some amazing talks. So let's start with the very first keynote speaker, obviously the one and only David Heinemeier Hansen, DHH, inventor of Ruby on Rails, 37 signal badass. So his was the kickoff talk. And we both really liked it. And I wasn't sure if I would like it because I love DHH, but I've seen so many talks and so much of his stuff that it's not as exciting anymore. The things that I hear are not like super groundbreaking. So I was not expecting to love it, but I was there because I respected him, right? I wanted to be there. And I loved it. It was a really great talk. What was the core, the gist of it, and what were some of the key takeaways?
So Joel on Software a long time ago had this essay that has been quoted famously, and the essay makes a lot of sense. It's basically, don't ever rewrite your software. And rewriting your software will kill an organization. I think they used Netscape as an example back then, and it's been cited thousands of times since then, probably by anyone ever considering rewriting their software. And DHH is talking about with Basecamp how he kind of grew up on that mentality and grew up on Agile and the ability to morph your software over time, make it better and better, and the idea of the eternal code base. And that you can take a table was his metaphor, and if you just kind of like this is where he kind of shows that the metaphor eventually breaks down. But with software, you can kind of turn it into anything slowly. You can refactor, the UI can change. That's great. But what he was started to point out is like as you start to change software in significant ways after users have been using it for years and they paid for software to work the way it is. Yes, they want improvements. Yes, they want to take the current software and make it better. They want to fix bugs. They want a little feature added here and there. But you can't just go like strip out a bunch of features, redesign all the deck chairs. You can't totally change it without people getting pretty upset. But on the flip side, if you don't totally change it, every once in a while, every few years, people will people going to the site looking for a new solution, new customers are no longer going to be impressed because it's 10-year-old software. And so it's like the analogy of like you can take a table and morph it into a beautiful chair if you want to by like squishing down the wood and like morphing it, but it's going to be a really ugly chair.
And you're always going to be limited. Like you're always going to be limited and constrained by the piece of wood that you used and the amount of material you have to build that chair. So you're trying to turn it into a table, and you have very limited abilities on how to do that great versus starting from scratch, which gives you everything you want to make the greatest table without constraints.
Yeah.
So they decided with Basecamp to rewrite from scratch, and it didn't kill them. and they did it once, and now they did it twice. And we didn't know
they're
about
working
that.
on they're working on a second one. They've already wrote about it, but we didn't know about it.
Yeah.
I think the really interesting thing, or the part that the part where they really added value, is talking about how to do a version 2 of a product where it's a completely new product. They're not trying to keep the same data structures. They're not giving people a migration path. It's just a different product. And I think one of the biggest takeaways is they want to compete for new business today with their today's best ideas, not their best ideas from years ago.
All right, so philosophically, I think we both kind of nodded and agreed, and we liked the concept. But then he shared some really like practical things on how do you execute on that, in terms of like the sunsetting was like a great practical tip of like what a horrible word for saying we're killing software is like we're sunsetting it, right? Which means all the customers that's been with us for like many years and have gotten used to using the software the way it is, and they love the table. They don't need a chair, right? They just like it the way it is. You can't just take that away from them and say, now we've built this chair, because new customers want chairs more than tables because they're going to hate you, right? And it's the wrong thing to do. So how do they handle that when they bring out a new version?
They're launching a version and then they're working on that version. It's continually improving. We're not talking about building a software version and then just like starting over on a next version every year. But after many years, when they decide to launch a new version, they've decided let's just keep running the old version. We're not going to force people to upgrade to the new version. In fact, we're not even going to highly recommend it strongly, and you better do it. Like, that's what a lot of people do. Even if they have two versions in parallel, they're sort of strongly pushing people over to the new direction. They're not doing that. They're saying, you know what? It's going to be a little bit of a cost, but not that big of a cost, and it's worth the cost to just run this thing forever. At least as long as there's some like large amount of customers still wanting to pay for it, which there are in their case. You can just keep running the old version forever. Start the new version fresh, like it's a new product. They have very different ideas in their new product. They stripped out dozens of features, have dozens of new features. Just a very different thing, but you don't have to force people to upgrade.
One funny anecdote was at the speakers dinner, I was talking to Peldi, who's the founder of Balsamic, and they did the same thing 2 years in a row, like rewriting from scratch, but he was a lot less selling on the idea and much more, you could tell that he was much more real about it in the sense that his body language was like, it's so painful to do this, but he was agreeing that it's the right thing to do. And it's not an easy process. It's not like super easy to just, write everything from scratch. It's all beautiful and all nice. No, there's like sacrifice attached to it, and it's tough to do, but it's the right thing to do to stay on top as the world changes, to keep having fresh new ideas and offering something to people today that's really valuable versus being attached and held back by the thing that you've done in the past. All right, so let's move on to the next talk that we really loved. Our man, the one and only Patio 11, Patrick McKenzie, KalzumiaSoftware.com if you don't know him. So he talked about recruiting because he's starting a new recruiting software company. What were some, and we'll keep this shorter because you have to catch a flight. What are some of like the top 1 or 2 takeaways, Phil, that you took from the talk from Patrick?
Yeah, so he's talking about how to recruit, especially engineers, which is a very hard thing to do. But just some basic tips. For example, you're giving a talk, you're talking to people. Don't just write "we're hiring" as your last slide on your presentation. Start talking about what you love about working there, and how the people are great, what you love about it. Overall, that's much more attractive. Another just a quick tip is if you're doing outreach, if you're doing outbound recruiting, to actually like have somewhere in your hiring process that you can offer to help them skip. Like, I want to push you to the front of the queue of hiring because you look awesome or whatever.
Yeah, that's cool. And one funny thing was, like, as we were seeing that talk, Phil was looking over at me preparing my presentation to speak at Business or Software Conference, and there's literally a slide with just the team that says we're hiring, and he's like, Patrick said you shouldn't have a slide like that. And I'm like, oh, delete. So we're iterating fast on our presentations here. By the way, there you go. All right. So the next funny Patrick McKenzie story here, as a side note, was that Patrick was telling us how he closed like a really big unicorn startup in Silicon Valley to become an early customer for the new company and new business that he's building. And the way he did it is by, at the end of the conversation, asking the CEO and founder of that really big business, going, do you know Steli? And the guy's like, yeah. It's like, well, if Steli was here, Steli would never let you go without a firm commitment that you're going to be using our software. So are you going to be using our software? And the guy's like, this is so weird of you to say this. This is so not like you. And Patrick was like, yes, that's why I said Steli would say this. So, will you buy? And they got them, and I thought that was super hilarious. And I was encouraging the audience in Business of Software at the workshop to just use me, as the fall guy. If they don't feel comfortable being super aggressive, she'll say, if Steli was here right now, even if they don't know who I am, then he would say this and this, right? That's kind of the trick of like saying, oh, I heard. Some people say, Governor, that you are an asshole. What do you think? It's like, not me. It's just some people that are saying it. All right, so let's move on to the last talk that I want to,
Whoa.
What?
How was it as a speaker?
No, wait. One more talk.
All right.
Peldi's.
But your talk was before Peldi's.
All right. So we're doing it sequentially. So how was it for me to speak? It was funny. Number one, it was probably the first talk where I was not allowed to curse. So I had a lot of fun with that, of like constantly stopping and like playing with the audience and looking at the organizer and going like, this is really hard. No, it was a ton of fun. The audience was great. I felt good about the talk, but even more importantly, the workshop's really, really cool. And I had the opportunity to give a sales workshop after the talk, which I periscoped. So there's still a scope around. If you look at my timeline, if you follow me on Periscope, there's the workshop from yesterday I gave. We streamed the whole thing. You can watch the recording for like 5 more hours and then it's gone. So check it out if you're interested in it. And the great thing, it was all Q&A. So it was all tactical and practical problems that people had. And it was scheduled for like 30, 40 minutes. We went for 2.5 hours. So that was a ton of fun. So yeah, I had a great time speaking. My talk is going to be live, and we're going to be putting it on Twitter and everywhere else. So let's finish strong with the last talk that we both loved.
Awesome.
I went and hugged the speaker afterwards. Like we had a physical love romance moment after the talk. Peldi from Balsamic, who's an awesome human being. So, all right, so I'll start with this one. I'll let you chime in. So one of the really cool things that was unusual is that a big part of his talk will not be live. You won't be able to watch the video. Nobody was tweeting about it because he kept it confidential. And he was speaking about his experience of going through acquisition talks with a really famous unicorn startup again, offering him a shit ton of money, life-changing. He's this tiny team. It would make this massive difference to their life. And he shared, he gave one of the most honest, raw, step-by-step accounts of his experience of going through the motions and the negotiations and the contracts and the internal emails and his ups and downs and some of the physical shit that came out of it, the stress he had that manifested in him creating, having a phobia now and all kinds of shit. Was pretty raw and amazing, and he's a pretty amazing human being. But I think that some of the key takeaways, other than how powerful it is when you're authentic and you just share who you are and how much people love and appreciate that, is that it's really important to know why you're doing what you're doing. And it's very easy to forget that, again, blinded for a second by a lot of money or by VCs coming to offer you this new vision of what you're doing that's maybe bigger or better or appears to be bigger or better. Or people that might tell you the opposite, that you should think smaller and this is not really, it's so easy to buy into somebody else's vision and get blinded by that. No matter how grounded you are, no matter how strong you believe in what you're doing, we all are going to have moments where we just lose our way and we get blinded by something that seems like maybe I should do this new thing. He started a company never to sell it. He started to run it as a small restaurant, on the internet. One of the funny things he said was they had, when they reached 12 employees, he was like, all right, this is the right size. He sent an email to everybody. A blog post, we finally have the perfect company size. We will never change it in the next 5 years, right? Which is kind of crazy to say. So he wanted to say small, but then the money came along and the charm attack and all that. And he, for a few months, was completely torn apart by the decision of doing it or not doing it. They decided finally to not do it, and it was an amazing, very authentic process, sharing it with the entire team, his family, being very open about it. And it seems like it was the right thing for him to do, but it was just great to see that everybody struggles, no matter how strong people blog about their principles and why they started this business. We're never for sale. But then you'd see how, when they got enough money offered for 3 to 6 months, they were very close to losing the way and sell. And it's understandable. So that was kind of a really raw entrepreneurial story that I appreciated a lot. Yeah, what did you think?
Yeah.
You didn't even know who he was. I was surprised by that.
Yeah, I didn't know his name ahead of time. I knew Balsamic, but didn't know like how awesome he was. Yeah, I think the conference did a really good job. DHH and DHH started the conference and he ended the conference, and they were both amazing. So I just really loved hearing the overall story and how he was kind of open about all the different steps along the way. One of the funny parts was that he spoke here at Business of Software 2 years ago, and then yesterday he told us basically he totally changed his mind on everything he talked about during his talk that day. And so it's just also interesting to think, what did he tell us today that he's going to be changing his mind on in 2 years? And all the other speakers, what are they also, going to change their mind on in a couple of years? But overall, just really inspirational, and, got to see the inside look at what's going on in a kind of a fast-growing startup entrepreneur's head.
Yeah, I love that last takeaway. That's going to be it for us before you have to run. Your Uber driver's already calling us. So, yeah, I think that even in a conference, even when you watch talks, keynotes, and you're super inspired by these amazing people and their amazing stories, and they have everything you want and you want to get there eventually, is realizing that a year or two from now, they might be giving a talk telling about all of that stuff just not panning out, not being the right thing. So just some of these ideas. So I think it's important to be inspired. I think it's important to take some of these things and ask yourself, like, is this authentic to us? Is this tactical? Is this something that plays to our strength? Is this something we can try out? But don't try to change yourself into some other human being and completely change your own vision and your own inner direction because some speaker said something, because that person might and most likely will change their mind, and you're still going to be stuck with these old ideas that they had. So keep that in mind. We're all just human beings, and we share ideas and we have experiences, but we all still kind of trying to figure it out as we go along. All right, that's from us. Phil's running to the airport. Hey, if you're interested in product, at Phil Frio, follow him on Twitter. He's awesome. He's the man responsible for Closeout being such an amazing product. Keep following me. I'm going to be scoping more.
Hello?
On my trip to Berlin, Vienna, and Austria.
Okay,
all right,
I'm coming
this is
down.
his driver. We're out of here. Talk to you later. Bye-bye. Oh, there you go.